We're going to read chapter 4 together, and so before we go on, let's do a little reflection on what happened in chapter 3. The big thing is about Gabriel, this new child, that his father is going to get to give a little bit of extra nurturing to. We know that every family has one boy and one girl, so this isn't really going to be a child that's going to stay there. It's just someone that, until he gets to be a little healthier, that father's going to take care of. And a couple things to take note of in this chapter. They talked about Jonas and Gabe both have pale eyes. And that's an odd way to describe somebody's eyes. So it makes me wonder, what does that mean, pale eyes? He talked about everybody else's eyes as dark and his is pale. And we know that one of the biggest things about this community is that everybody feels the same. And we see something that Jonas now feels different about, and he's not happy about it. So as we continue reading, I want you to think about these 3 questions. Is everybody safe in the community? Is everyone healthy in the community? And is everyone happy in the community? Because that's really what makes their utopia. They want everyone to be safe, happy, and healthy. And have they done that? If we could fix all the problems that we thought existed, most of those had to do with safety and health. And that's a pretty big responsibility when you think about taking care of a large group of people. Jonas rode at a leisurely pace, glancing at the bike ports beside the buildings to see if he could spot Asher's. He didn't often do his volunteer hours with his friend because Asher frequently fooled around and made serious work a little difficult. But now, with 12 coming so soon and the volunteer hours ending, it didn't seem to matter. The freedom to choose where to spend these hours had always seemed a wonderful luxury to Jonas. Other hours of the day were so carefully regulated. So I'm going to stop here because they're talking a lot about these volunteer hours. And so I wonder, well, I know it, in our community we have places that you can volunteer as kids, maybe at a dog shelter, helping your neighbor. This seems a little bit more formal. So it makes me wonder, when they have everything so regulated, everything is on a schedule, what the purpose of these volunteer hours are. He remembered when he had become an 8, as Lily would do shortly, and had been faced with the freedom of choice. The 8s always set out on their first volunteer hour a little nervously, giggling and staying in groups of friends. So now I see when this starts. From 8 until 11, turning to 12, they spend time in the community doing these things called volunteer hours. They almost invariably did their hours on recreation duty first, helping with the younger ones in a place where they still felt comfortable. But with guidance, as they developed self-confidence and maturity, they moved on to other jobs, gravitating towards those that would suit their own interests and skills. A male 11 named Benjamin had done his entire nearly 4 years in the rehabilitation center, working with citizens who had been injured. It was rumored that he was as skilled now as the rehabilitation directors themselves, and that he had even developed some machines and methods to hasten rehabilitation. There was no doubt that Benjamin would receive his assignment to that field and would probably be permitted to bypass most of the training. So this makes me think that Benjamin, probably like Jonas's father, already knows what his assignment's going to be. One thing that made me wonder, though, they said people can be injured. It seemed like, this comes back to my question, is everybody safe? So I wonder what happens to make them injured, because it seems like everything else around here has been pretty structured and organized and safe. Jonas was impressed by the things Benjamin had achieved. He knew him, of course, since they had always been group mates, but they never talked about the boy's accomplishments, because such a conversation would have been awkward for Benjamin. There was never any comfortable way to mention or discuss one's successes without breaking the rule against bragging, even if one didn't mean to. It was a minor rule, rather like rudeness, punishable only by gentle chastisement. But still, better to steer clear of an occasion governed by a rule which would be easy to break. Okay, so we found a new rule, a rule against bragging. I wonder why they had that rule, and it makes me come back to this, is everyone happy? I know that sometimes people get unhappy when other people brag, so maybe this is one of those rules that kind of goes along with that idea. Not making people feel jealous, not making people feel like they're not good enough is, one of the problems that we said we would try to fix if we could fix it in our utopia. The area of dwellings behind him, Jonas rode past the community structures, hoping to spot Asher's bicycle parked beside one of the small factories or office buildings. He passed the child care center where Lily stayed after school and the play area surrounding it. He rode through the central plaza and the large auditorium where public meetings were held. This paragraph gives me a little bit of a description of what the community looks like. Some of the different buildings. So this is good at helping me visualize kind of how the community is set up. Jonas slowed and looked at the name tags on the bicycles lined up outside the nurturing center. Then he checked those outside food distribution. It was always fun to help with the deliveries, and he hoped he would find his friend there so that they could go together on the daily rounds, carrying the cartons of supplies into the dwellings of the community. But he finally found Asher's bicycle leaning, as usual, instead of its upright in its port, as it should have been, at the House of the Old. I wonder what the House of the Old is. I know we have a place for old people. It's called a nursing home. So I wonder if that's what the House of Old is. There was only one other child's bicycle there, that of a female named 11 named Fiona. Jonas liked Fiona. She was a good student, quiet and polite, but she had a sense of fun as well, and it didn't surprise him that she was working with Asher today. He parked his bicycle neatly in the port beside theirs and entered the building. "Hello, Jonas," the attendant at the front desk said. She handed him the sign-up sheet and stamped her own official seal beside his signature. All of his volunteer hours would be carefully tabulated at the Hall of Open Records. Once, long ago, it was whispered among the children, and 11 had arrived at the ceremony of 12 only to hear a public announcement that he had not completed the required number of volunteer hours, and would not, therefore, be given his assignment. He had been permitted an additional month in which to complete the hours, and then given his assignment privately, with no applause, no celebration, a disgrace that had clouded his entire future. So it sounds like we had talked about being chastised and how embarrassing that might make you feel. They try to do that chastisement by not calling you out on the speaker. They just kind of generally say to all of the 11s a gentle reminder. But this seems like something that's a little bit more pointed out. Not in calling him out, but maybe in not giving him the recognition. That would be like not getting to walk and get your diploma when you graduate. "It's good to have some volunteers here today," the attendant told him. "We celebrated a release this morning, and that always throws the schedule off a little, so things get backed up." She looked at a printed sheet. "Let's see. Asher and Fiona are helping in the bathing room. Why don't you join them there? You know where it is, don't you?" All right, I'm going to stop you here, and a couple of things I noticed. We're going to maybe find something more about release. So as I read today, I want to find out, we've heard about release in a couple of different aspects, and just kind of wondering what that is. So pay attention to that. And I'm going to tell you, they are at like kind of a nursing home, a place for old people, and they're helping in the bathing room. So this chapter might seem a little bit awkward to you, and when you think of the task that they're doing. But I want you to also think about that in their community, they're really kind of adults already. When they turn 12, I compare that to us kind of turning 18. That's when they start getting their jobs. And if you were going to have the job of working in a nursing home, that really is one of the jobs that you would have to do. So while it might seem kind of odd that these 12-year-olds are doing it because it's not something you would ever think of doing, kind of keep in mind that it's almost kind of like they're adults. All right, so you'll continue reading and continue annotating. If you have any questions, please email me. And if you'd like to do a Google Meet to discuss the chapter, then just email me and let me know when you're available.